All right, continuing with our Java series, we're going to now look at the various decision structures. So we've already seen the if-else, and I'll look at a previous program to show that. And then we'll look at what's known as the cascaded if, and then we'll look at the switch. We'll see how long this goes. I might end up putting the switch in another video. Okay, so I'm here in NetBeans. I've gone ahead and opened it up. I actually started to create my new project, which is called Scanner, and then I opened a previous project, which you've already seen in the videos, and you have the source code for called uh, Selection. And I'm sorry, Scanner is the old one, Selection is the new one. So here in Scanner, the previous one, we use the scanner and we create a conditional code with an if-then-else block. So I'm actually going to write a program that uses scanner again, so I won't go over that now. We'll do that when we write the program. Let me go ahead and adjust this a little bit just to make sure everything is on the screen and recorded. It doesn't want to do that. All right, I'll just close that off. There we go. So that should help. Everything fits on the screen. So really the basic part here is when you have an if structure, you have the keyword if, then you have a value in parentheses which has to equate to true or false. It has to be what's known as a Boolean expression. So Boolean expression can be a method like this that returns true or false. And in this case, the in has next double returns true if when we next do our next double, the next item that we're reading from the scanner is in fact a double, okay? Or put another way, it can be successfully read as a double. Alternatively, I can have an expression in here. So we saw before when I was playing around with the values and I showed you the comparison operators, I could have something like if 5 is greater than 3, which would evaluate to true. And so what happens is that the true-false value, the Boolean expression, has to be here in the parentheses. And then we either have a single statement or we have a block. And I recommend that even when you have a single statement, like I do here, you just go ahead and put the block in every time. It makes the code more readable. And in practice, when you're coding, if you don't put the block in at the beginning, it'll turn out that you need to put it in later. So just get in the habit of putting that in. Okay, if we use the else, that runs if the statement is false. So if this is true, the code in here runs. And if it's false, this code runs. So in this case, if we don't have a double when we go to read it, that means that the user's typed some crap, they made a mistake, hit a typo, whatever, and it's a value that can't be read as a double number. Usually that means it's some characters, some, like non-digit characters. And so if that's the case, I don't want to go ahead then and try to use the next double method because that'll throw an exception and my program will break. Instead, I print out a message to the user that they have to enter a valid number, try again, and the program ends. Later on, when we learn how to do the while loop, we'll see that what we'll do is we'll just put a while loop in that loops until the user gets it right. And that's how we'll bulletproof our programs. Just a reminder, when I say bulletproof, that means a program that the user cannot bring down through an error, an exception, by making some sort of bad input. And it's very useful when we code to kind of think of the user as an antagonist. And so we think that the user is going to do their best to break the program, and then we want to make it good so that it can't be broken. Okay, so that's a review of the if and the else. When you have an if, you simply don't have an else block. In that case, the code just runs if it's true, and then nothing else. It just continues to run the code afterwards if not. With the else block, if the if block is false, the if statement is false, we don't run the code in the if statement. Instead, we run the code in the else. Okay, let's do one now that has more than two choices. And this is going to be a cascaded if. And I'm going to switch over now to my new project, which is called Selection. And we're going to do one of the programs that I have you do as a pseudocode, and I don't know if you did the flowchart for this one or not. We use the flowcharts initially just for you to learn how to use them, but in day-to-day coding we use the pseudocode. So this is a program where we're going to prompt the user with a little input choice to tell us what political party they belong to. And they can indicate either Republican, Democrat, or Independent, or something else. And something else will basically mean we don't really know what they are. Okay? So basically, if I go through my steps, I'm going to prompt the user, input their party affiliation, and then now basically I'm going to respond according to the affiliation, but it's kind of important that we write this out. So if a Democrat, I'm going to write this like this for a very specific reason. So if a D Democrat, then you get a Democratic donkey. If a R Republican, then you get a Republican elephant. If an I independent, then you get an independent man. We don't really have a symbol for independent. And then if, sorry about that. I hit the insert key and it changes the type mode into insert rather than overtype. Okay, so I fixed that. And then finally, if anything else, you get, I don't know what you are. Okay? So basically the you get means we'll output a message to that effect. Now, if we wanted to, we could just make this real simple and make each one of these a separate if statement. That's actually pretty inefficient, because if you do it that way, that means that you test every time to see if they're a Democrat, if they're Republican, if they're an independent, and also if they're anything else. It's actually kind of hard to test for anything else. And so if you think about it, we have a set of mutually exclusive options. So we don't want to test separately. We want to create a cascaded if structure. And then what happens is the structure will be really efficient, and it'll simply, it'll only check for the minimum number of tries. So for instance, as soon as I know that you're a Democrat, I don't need to figure out if you're a Republican, an independent, or anything else. You can't be, because those are exclusive. And so that's the idea here, is to use the fewest number of tests. Now, we're talking about saving milliseconds of time here, but you should get in the habit of writing code that's efficient in this way, because sometimes in a big project, all that time will add up. Okay, looking at this, I really just need a variable called party affiliation. And I think I'm going to use a string variable here. So string party affil. And again, that's short for affiliation. I don't care to write that. And I'll go ahead and set this to the empty string, which I don't really have to do. But it turns out that the compiler will complain because of the way that I'm doing this. Maybe it might not. Okay. Okay, so let's go on through our pseudocode. So how do we prompt the user? We use the system out, right? Out tab. And then because this is an input prompt, we're going to take the line out and make it system out print. Okay, enter your party affiliation. You know what? I think I'm going to try and make this real pretty. So let's go ahead and use what we learned about printf. And so we'll do printf, and then I'll go ahead and let's see. Do I want to use printf here? No, I don't actually. Okay, so sorry about that. So I'm just going to say print, enter your party affiliation. I'm going to do this on multiple lines, so it turns out I want to print line after all. So enter your party affiliation. And now watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to just show you a kind of cheap and quick and dirty way. Whoops, didn't get my new line in there. To make a quick menu here. So enter your party affiliation. And then let's see. Democrat. I'll make that a capital D. I'm just going to jam the spaces in here to line this stuff up. And then D dash Democrat. Let's see. So I'm kind of going to some effort here to make this pretty. I might end up wasting my video time here doing this. So we'll see. So R, Republican. I could use the printf to line this stuff up too. And the advantage of doing that is it would be easy for me to adjust it. So I'm doing this by hand manually, and you know, it's not going to be really adjusted. Independent. Okay. And then finally, our last message will be enter your choice, D, comma, R, comma, I. And then we're not going to tell the user that they can enter something else. Now this last one is going to be the prompt. So I'll go ahead and take the ln out, and so that will leave the prompt hanging there. And then their input will be right on the same line as this line that says enter your choice, D, R, or I. Now I'm going to just shove this over so I can line it up and make it look good. So that looks pretty good. All right. And you know what? One of the things we can do, I always forget to tell you about this, but we can do what's called incremental development. So I'm just going to run this even though I'm not done to see if the output is looking good. And that looks really nice. So it's got a kind of a neat menu, DRI, enter your choice, DR or I. And notice that this is on the same line. That's because the input would come there. So when the ID put the build successful message in, it didn't go to the next line because we were still on the same line with the printing. Okay, so it's always good to do incremental development like that. All right, so now we have to do the input, and let's just go over here real quickly. So party affiliation is the value that we're going to input, and we need to get a scanner, so we'll have to create that up here. Damn it. I've got one of these crazy things in my office the mouse sits on, and it rolls down and it rolls the screen off. It's really annoying. Okay, so scanner in equals new scanner. And of course, when we create a scanner to read from the console, which is the keyboard, we always use system.in, which is a system string. And then, as I mentioned before, I have to put in the import. Now, NetBeans will do that for me. So if I come up here, I can click this little help menu, how to fix it. And the first option there, add import for Java util scanner. I'll just click on that and it'll do the trick. When I first started writing this, because I knew I was going to use scanner, I started to do that by hand. And I wanted to show you that. So import java.util. And then as I start to type it, there's the scanner and then a semicolon. So I couldn't write that by hand. If I know I'm using those, I might do that. Okay? All right, so now we're ready to input party affiliation. So party affil equals in.next. Now, because I'm reading a string, there's not much chance of an error, so I don't have to test this with a has next. And let's see if we get our IntelliSense here. There it is. So basically, we could read next, which would just read the next string, or we could use next line. I kind of like to use next line because then it'll include the entire line if the user types more. And so if they type individual words, next will just read the one word, next line will read the whole thing. Here, it doesn't really matter because I'm expecting a single character, right? A D, an R, or an I, or something else. And so one good thing about doing the scanner, if you're reading next or next line, that's reading a string, there's no way the user can type something that's not a valid string because we know that even digits can be parts of strings, right? Okay, so now we're going to start what we really are looking at here in this video, and that's the cascaded if. So I'll say if party fill, and now these are string methods. And remember before I showed you that when we test for equality with a string, we can't use the equal operator. We have to use the equals operator, which you can see up here. And in this case, to make the menu a little friendlier, I'm going to, although I didn't tell them that, I'm going to allow the ignore case. So they can put either a upper or lower value, a case value, and it'll work. So let's do this, equals ignores case. And then now I'm going to put in the value, and this is the D. So if they put in either a lower or uppercase D, then I'm going to go ahead and print out the output. Now, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and do the output right here, but instead of doing that and having a bunch of extra output statements, let's just put the output one time. And so we'll have another variable called output string. And so here we are, this will be a string, and this will be output, let's call it message, output message. And output message initially is an empty string. It doesn't have any characters in it, okay? So if the party affiliation equals ignore case D, output message equals you get a democratic, is it a donkey? Yeah, a democratic donkey. I'm a Democrat myself, but I think it should be elephant for us, but it's not. So I always get that confused. You get a democratic donkey. Okay? You make that an exclamation point and then a semicolon here. Okay? So as you can see, these cases are going to be very similar. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and let's see, what does that match? Oh, that's my main. Okay, so I don't know how I did that. Let's see what this match is. Somehow I got an extra thing in there, and that's a big problem because the program won't compile like that. So I'm going to take that out. This should be main. This should be the class. It is, so I'm good. Okay. All right, now, basically I'm going to have this same block each time, but I'm going to chain them together with the else. So I'll put the else in, and then I'll just go ahead and paste this in. And now, see my message here? I'm going to move that. It's okay to put a comment in here like this. That won't affect the block. It should be fine. Okay. And I don't really need the space now. So then here we're looking for an R, and then the message now is you get a Republican elephant. And so you see, I could have just gone ahead and printed the message out in each block, but it's really cleaner to do the input one time at the end. So instead, I'm just setting the output message, and then in every case, I'll print out the output message. Okay, now we can kind of see how the code structures. So here's the first if. If that fails, the else kicks in. It doesn't matter that we have a comment in there. Okay, so really this is just one long continuous structure. Right now we just have the if and the else if, and now we'll put the next else if in. And that'll go right here after the independent option. And I'm going to move to the end there so it's formatted correctly. Paste it in. That's Control V. Get rid of this line, white space, and then come on down here. And now this is going to be an I. I'm testing for the independent. That's my third clause. So the first is test for the Democrat, then test for the Republican, then test for the independent. You get an independent man. Again, I'm not sure what the icon for the independent party person that is. We could add another one too. We could add the libertarian, right? So maybe a libertarian is, I don't know, what would that be? Okay, now this is important. I'm going to go ahead and copy this in again. But then I'm going to explain that I'm going to change it. So you see how this is a test here? It's got the if part of the test. Do I need that? No. Basically, I test for the three cases that I want. Are you a Democrat, are a Republican, or an independent? They're mutually exclusive. If you're not one of those, then you've got to be in the last category. So whenever you have one of these cascading structures, the last choice is always a plain else with no if, because you don't have to test. So I basically got four possibilities. If I test for three, you have to be in the fourth. Okay? And so this message for the person that specified something other than one of those three is, I have no idea what you are. Okay? All right. And so now all we have to do is output our message, and we're going to do that in any case, that is for each case. So now I'll use my tab, system out print line, and I'll print out put message. And I might decide that I need to, let's see, is that going to be, well, we'll see how it works. We might need to refine the format a little bit. Okay, so I already tested the menu to see if it printed, and now I can actually test the whole program. I probably could have tested it a bit earlier. Let's see, I thought I clicked on that button to run it. What's going on? There we go. Okay, so there's my input. And remember we talked before that when we test a program, we have to test it thoroughly. So I have four things I have to test here. The DR and I options, and then finally the last option, which is different. We could probably argue that one test for the DRI would work, but since we're beginners, we should be careful and be comprehensive. Okay, now, and also there's really two things, right? I can do an upper or lowercase d. Probably I don't need to try all of those options, so I don't need to try each one twice. So let me first try with a capital D, and you get a Democratic donkey. So that test worked. We'll run the program again. Now I'll try with a lowercase r. You got a Republican elephant. That's good. Okay, I'll run it yet again. It doesn't matter if I do upper or lowercase I, so it's easier to hit I. Okay, and then my final test is, let's say I'm in the Green Party, so I'll hit a G. I have no idea what you are because it didn't know about the Green Party. Okay, so that's pretty good. We got what we wanted. I am going to go ahead and end here, and I'll create a separate video to show you the select structure, which we can actually use for this same item here. I mean, the same case here. In fact, what we'll do is we'll extend that and we'll add the green and the libertarian in. Okay, real quickly, just to review, when we have an if, we have in parentheses an expression or a variable that's going to be Boolean. So it has to come back as true or false. And so in this case, equals ignores case is a test to see if party affiliation is either an upper or lowercase d. And that can either be true or false. Okay? When we have a series of mutual choices, instead of doing an independent if for each one, we chain them together in what's called a cascaded if. And when we do that, it's only going to be for cases that are mutually exclusive. So basically here, I have 4 cases. I test for the first 3 with an if statement, and then I default to the last value because I know if it's not A, B, or C, it has to be D. Okay, so you can see the logic of that. Again, the advantage of doing this with the else is, if I had these as just independent, if, it would always do each one. So for instance, if we got the D, we already know that's true, but then we go on and test the R, the I, and the other option when we didn't need to. So this is a more efficient way of doing it. When you have tests that are related, connect them together in a cascade structure. Now, when you have more than 4 or 5 options, then you want to use the select structure instead, if you can, and we'll show that in the next one. One more thing I wanted to mention, instead of having output in all 4 of these clauses, I put a single output one time at the end. And so what I did in each case was I just changed the message because I noticed the pattern that in every case I was going to output. It's always better to do that because later on, if we changed this and we made it a graphical user interface program, we'd have to go back and fiddle with every one of those outputs. So by having one output for the whole thing, it's much easier to maintain, change, and update. Okay, I hope this was helpful for you.